Once the Tyranid High Fleet has made planetfall, it becomes a race against time. With every day as the defenders fall, so does the life energy of the planet itself. The High Fleet will begin devouring the planet from the inside. Huge spires of toxic fumes will billow out from the ground. There is nowhere left to run. In the end, if the defenders fail to scour the Tyranids from the planet's surface before this begins to take shape, few worlds have seen a new dawn. With the arrival of the fleet, the Lictor unleashes itself upon the enemy, unshackled by restraint, its true venom unleashed. Okay Legionnaires, here we are, the final part of this tutorial. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and now I bring you the dead base. So for this tutorial we're actually going to be using mainly pigment paints and texture paints as well. So there's nothing super technical about this, but it's really important that we get a contrasting color to our miniature. So I was deciding, because we've got green as our main color, I was deciding between yellow and red. And because I've been using red as a part of the Paris red, as a part of the actual skin, I think it's actually really important that we use some colour from the model itself on the base. So that gave us an option. We had a choice of using the yellow because of the green in the armour, or red in the skin, and I think green and red are contrasting colours, so it makes sense for them to be used as opposing colours on the base and to really make our Tyranid Lictor stand out on the battlefield. So the first thing is just making sure our AK texture paint is applied very liberally all over the model. Every part from that part of the base that we've sculpted, we just want to make sure that we fill all those crevices with some sandy texture paint. And this is really fun, really liberal. We can actually go over this pigment paint afterwards. And if you're unfamiliar with how I make my bases, then be sure to check out the way I did it for my Crimson Fist. I then apply a thinned layer of Paris red all over the base, and you can see just how warm that is and how instantly it pops out against the armor. It also actually ends up making it look like there's a little bit of a glow on the Tyranid's underside, and that's mainly just because when we started painting I also added in some of that Paris red to the underside, so it's actually really on the model itself, so it really works for us and just adds as a way to contrast and have that model stick out. So I'm just taking a little bit of thinner each time, applying that all over the model, letting it get into all those crevices, and we can even hit this with a blow dryer if we want to, just to speed up that process. But really take your time, enjoy it, just do your best to avoid any of the model or any of the parts you don't want the colour to reach, the base colour to reach. And use a big brush for this process, guys. You don't need to use a small tiny size, I think this is a size 6 I'm using, a very flat fill bit size 6, just to get into those areas and to really give us that coverage over the model. So now we're actually on to the pigment, and I can't actually remember what this brand is. I don't think it's actually produced anymore. It used to be made by Hera Miniatures, but they no longer make pigments. So you can just use any of the pigments I've mentioned in the paint list yourself, and as long as they're similar colours, it won't matter too much. You could even mix an oil paint into this pigment paint as well, just to give us a bit of a darker sheen. But for now, I'm just applying the burnt umber across the base and just leaving in some red parts to have some variation. Of course, when we actually hit this with a blow dryer, all of that moisture will evaporate and will be left behind with a harder pigment, and you can actually see that's happened now. You can see where it's dried, it's gone more solid, and now I'm just applying a little mixture of the red pigment, the Martian pigment, I think it's called burnt sienna, over the pigment here, and sorry, medium rust. I'm using the medium rust over this section of the base to really bring those colors in. And we can be very tactical with how we use this. I think it's really important to start with thinned paint first, and then make sure your brush is dry, and get some thicker paint in there. And we can just dry brush this over the feet, over the undersides, anywhere that we feel like there would be contact made with the miniature. Or bug in my camera trying to attack me. And we basically make sure that we apply this very liberally but carefully. By doing it this way, doing this two layers of colors approach, we actually get some nice variation, and when it dries, it really starts to come together. And there you go, I've hit it with the blow dryer, and you can see how it started to pop up. And now I'm just going in with another layer of that medium rust over the base, just to really bring out the orange and the warmth. I'm trying to stick to areas where I would want the viewer to look, and it's just very liberally caking that across the model. If we were doing this for a display miniature, I don't think I'd go around doing it this way, but this because this is like just a character for my army, and I'm going to be basing the other members of the army in a very similar way. It's okay, it won't actually harm us to do it this way. Just taking that dry powder, applying it to the undersides, and making sure that it kind of just sticks into all of those crevices. But it just shows that the battlefield is obviously changing, where certain parts of the planet have been scorched by like I don't know, las fire. Just be creative, and just as you're planning and moving the model around, don't worry too much about making it too technical. Which just create a little story with the colors that you're using, and using the brighter colors to bring attention to the areas of the base, and to therefore the areas of the model that you want the person to look at. Then I'm going to be using a pigment from Scale75's Soilworks called Sand. And this is just a very light color, and we're going to paint this a small amount of this over areas. I liked actually drawing it to the hand, and what I've done is I've applied it just to the underside of the hand to kind of bring out that color and to bring the attention there. And doing this way, it's a sort of spot color, that bright yellow appearing on the base just gives us that little bit of interest, where it draws the eye, and we slightly like brighten the value of the base as well. And because of the green, there's so much yellow in the green mixture we've made, the yellow on the base actually creates harmony, and it creates that kind of cohesiveness that our model's been that model needs. So the base now is kind of pretty much finished. We can just start softening that up, and we can apply some liquid as well. I then take some white spirit in a dropper bottle, and the reason for doing it this way is that now we cause all of that pigment that we've just applied to dry and to soak into the base, and then we can hit it with a blow dryer, and it just unifies everything. And here we go, after hitting with the blow dryer, this is the finished base. So the last thing we need to do is apply a matte application. I'm using AK's black primer over to the underside of the base, just to unify it all, make it look finished, make it look complete. All of that kind of dust that we've picked up from the pigment is now kind of being overshadowed by this color, and it just helps to finish the model off. So this is probably the most satisfying part of painting the entire base, the entire miniature, even just when it all comes together and you can just finish it off in this way. And as you can see, we turn the model, there's certain parts that are warmer than others. We've got where his claw is, we've got the sand there as well, so it just brings everything together and just helps the model really finish off. And that is the finished model. Thank you so much for your patience and sticking with me on this tutorial series. This is probably the most fun I've had painting a miniature from Games Workshop, and thank you so much for sticking with me and tuning in. And if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, there should be a link in the bio to my Patreon. Thank you to all my loyal patrons, you make this possible. Bye for now.